Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian owned, nothing control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in a replay. This is the vault, episode 777. It's interesting that we were thinking about what we're gonna do a financial episode for this particular episode, but it comes down to risk and trust management. And really excited about doing this particular episode. Something that comes up quite often, risk management. And we were thinking about risk management, how we deal with risk management right now, and how we dealt with risk management, how some of the great trustees have dealt with risk management. It's funny because the other day we were thinking, man, the workload sometimes it can be pretty heavy. And we were thinking about how some people show it on their face and some people don't. They show the level of risk that they're taking on their face. They show their fear on their face. They show their sweating. Their risk level, their risk tolerance isn't high, and their physique is showing it. Their physiology is showing it. And we were thinking about that because once again, if someone is taking improper risks, their physique isn't gonna do the right things. It's gonna sweat. It's gonna profusely sweat. And so we were thinking about that in the respect of risk management. Oh man, my body, man. I'm thinking about this, but my mind, I'm sweating. Okay, risk management. So we talked to trustees for years, and you hear various trustees can handle certain levels of risk management. Bottom line, they have a certain risk tolerance. Okay, so you say, okay, make it a point to understand risk management. Well, the way we were taught risk management at the vault is thinking about things objectively, and that's definitely something that prompted this episode, which is, are you thinking objectively towards risk? Bottom line, are you thinking objectively? You gotta think objectively. If you're not thinking objectively, you're not thinking properly. You're getting emotional about it. You think it's subjectively. Oh, this is my situation. We were thinking about how Trust Christian is an excellent problem solver, and all you gotta do to solve your own problems is step out of them a lot of times and look at it objectively. But why is it that people can't look at risk objectively? Because they're in the situation. So they don't step out of the situation. They're emotionally tied to the situation. If you ask them to step out of the situation, they still might be emotionally tied to the situation. That's it. That's how you have proper risk management. When you can step out of a situation and you don't think, oh, okay, I gotta be in this situation. That's it. You're not in any situation. You're gonna make it a point to step out of the situation and think objectively. Why? Because we're not thinking about ourselves in the first place and how you feel about the decision that you have to make. You're making a decision on behalf of the trust. That's what happens. Making a decision on behalf of the company, on behalf of the family estate. You're not making a decision on your own behalf. So the risk management or risk tolerance is there just in general. It's going to be there because you're taking risk on behalf of another person, which is an entity. So of course there's going to be some level of risk management associated with it. Okay, great, thank you. There's a level of risk management associated with it. Yes. There's a level of risk tolerance associated with it. What is your tolerance towards uh, making decisions? And this is something that Trust Christian's been, man, we've been meditating on for a period of time now. You really don't want to know, the decisions that you got to make as a trustee and as a founder of a company. You got to make decisions. And a lot of people think like, oh, what makes a great company a great company? What makes a great company is just people making lots of decisions. You say, oh yeah, I get you, Trust Christian. I got to make the big decision. to do it. That's true. You do got to make the big decision, but then outside of that, you got to make the decision every day to keep doing it, even if you don't see the result. That's the first decision. After that, the second decision is once you get in here, okay, now we're in a risk management position. What are we going to do to not lose the assets we currently have, but to grow the assets that we currently have? And that's that. And so what happens is you get into a position of, okay, are you doing it for self, or are you going to step back and look at the milestones as milestones for the company, milestones for the institution that you're building? And then from that perspective, you can always step out and say, okay, I can actually see the glaring holes. If this was my perfect situation, if this was going to completely help me have my perfect life, how would I need this situation to look right now? Well, clearly, you might have a few ideas if you were able to step out the situation. But one of the mentors, trainers, most people can't step out of the situation because they're emotionally tied to it. And he says basically, all you got to do is just eliminate your emotional relationship with these, what you call risk, what you call investments, what you call what you're doing with your money. That's pretty much what he trained us to do, is to eliminate your emotions towards it, which is interesting. Some people would say, "Oh man, trust Christian, this, that, and the third." What are you talking about? If you're doing something that's very cookie cutter, predictive, why would it get to a point where, oh yeah, trust Christian, I know it's predictive, but I'm not gonna do the predictive things. I'm gonna do how I feel today. No, it's a very predictive thing. So it's not really an emotional thing. So when we talk about emotion, whether that's in you dealing in investments or in the market, we're still talking about risk management. Still talking about risk and trust. So when trustees come to us, they don't always outrightly say, "Oh yeah, trust Christian, I have a risk management issue." Well, that's the business we're in. That's the lifestyle we're in. We're in the risk management. We're in the risk mitigation business. Okay, great. But okay, how are we going to fortify what you're looking to do? So how do we get around that? We got to make it a point to get around other successful risk managers. Make it a point to learn how to increase your risk tolerance. But we'll go ahead and share with you how to increase your risk tolerance because one of the mentors trained us properly, and we'll go ahead and share it. Uh, so the mentor, fortunately and unfortunately, the mentor said, "Every day, trust Christian, I want you to build your emotional bank account because that's what's going. If it runs out, it's going to run out faster than your financial bank account. So you got to make sure." And he would tell us not to depend on your emotions. He would tell us to depend on our habits. That's a big one. So if you don't depend on your emotions, you don't have to. You can depend on your habits. And so he trained us in a different style of more your habit base. But once again, he said, "Oh, trust Christian, you don't need to think about how you feel when your habits are good." That's how he would talk to us. So when people say, "Oh, trust Christian," I don't, I gotta make sure I'm motivated or whatever they say. Okay, just know, risk management. What are you motivated to do? See, you don't need motivation in risk management. Oh, motivated. What are you motivated to? Not lose money? Right. Right. So, okay, if you're here to preserve, because that's the sector you're in, risk management, wealth management, then we're here to preserve, not just grow. We're here to preserve. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you're listening live. But we definitely want to put everybody on notice, let everybody know for sure that risk management is one of those very vague subjects that, well, how are you managing risk nowadays? And the various people actually have equations for this. So this isn't like, oh, it's a misnomer. It's actual formulas for this. Okay, great. Everybody's portfolio is not going to look the same. Great. Once you understand everybody's portfolio is not going to look the same, we come on here, we do the podcast, we talk to people. Oh, trust Christian, you talked about gold and silver and precious metals and diamonds and pearls. Right, stuff you can get your hands on. And how many of y'all going to be able to go out and get a loan for a house? Oh, that's my biggest asset is a house. Right, instead of having hard tangible assets too. Insurance is a is a contract that has value to it. How many people go get that? People, do they go get insurance policies over getting houses? No, they try to go get a house. So once again, we have excitement when we talk about when we deal with people and they understand, okay, I gotta make sure I got the right asset base. I gotta make sure my asset base is in place. Yeah, you gotta make sure your asset base is in place. You gotta put an asset base in place to even make sure you can risk something or be on risk management mode. So if we're on risk management mode, we're in risk management mode, right? Okay, well, we're in risk management mode. Risk management is not always about not losing money. That's the thing about it. If anything, you come into our sector, we're focused on asymmetrical risk return. Risk return. What's your risk profile? What's your risk adjusted returns? We all understand you're gonna take risk. We all know that. So in this sector, we're not surprised. Oh yeah, trust Chris. Yeah, I gotta take a risk starting a new company. This is what they say. Oh yeah, I gotta start. I gotta take a risk doing this. I gotta take a risk doing that. Yeah, that's all it is. Okay, you gotta take a risk. You gotta take a risk for your family. What are you talking about? Take a risk for your family. You're right. You do. You do have to take risks for your family. Sometimes you gotta bet it all. Oh no, trust Christian, I wouldn't do that. That don't make no sense. And that's why we tell people once you establish your asset base properly, that's true. That's a major feat, risking it all. But at the end of the day, if you risk it all, then we know what you're gonna have. Have it all. Why? Because usually the ones that are willing to bet their own every time or bet at one point on themselves every time, they end up making it. Whereas the ones that are trying to, get a cut in the corner, it's like we'll sit around business projects and people won't want to raise the money themselves. Like trust Christian, look man, if you don't want to know your investors for your business or your venture or for your dream, you don't want to know the investors directly, then hey, now you know. Now you know why you don't know the investors because you don't feel like you need to be close to the investors, the people that have the money that can write the checks for your projects. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Feel free to reach out. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Peace and joy.